Let's talk about that. Some quite alarming news from the Middle East overnight. Iran has fired almost 200 missiles at Israel. Most of them were intercepted, but the damage is still being assessed. Iran say the attack is in response to Israeli attacks which killed the leaders of Hamas and Hezbollah, who are an armed group and political party, both backed by Iran. The Iranian president has warned there will be crushing attacks if Israel responds. So, to understand this a little better, just before I come to... Actually, let's come to you first. Phil, what do you think of what happened overnight?
We should stay out. It's not our war. We shouldn't get involved. The consequences would be awful. We're already bloody... Sorry, shouldn't swear, but I feel strongly about it. We should not get involved. It's not our war. Israel is increasingly the aggressor here. We shouldn't be getting
Carole,
in
quickly
there.
from you, before we go do the history of it.
I think Iran has been funding terrorist proxies for quite a long time now, and they have to be stopped.
OK, so let's have a look at the events, the recent history of this. I'm not suggesting it all started in 2023, but we go to the map and we look at where we all are, just to give you some context, and we head down to the Middle East and we look at where Israel is. And it's a tiny, tiny country in the middle of some quite seriously enemy territory. So Gaza Strip is here, and we go back to October the 7th, 2023. And this thing, the Nova Festival, music festival for young people, which was happening in Israel, but Hamas fighters, militant fighters, come across the border. Those are funded by Iran. Clearly a planned attack using paragliders. They land in this area, and a party turns into carnage. And this is the recent event that started this whole disastrous escalation. 1,139 people killed in and around the Nova Festival, which was in Rheims. OK, the result of that is that under Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, they attack Gaza with the aim of attacking Hamas. The problem is that a lot of people who aren't Hamas are killed as well. 40,000 Palestinians, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, among them 16,500 children killed in Gaza. Then Israel looked north. Now, just change the map here so we can clearly see the border. This is the northern border with Lebanon. Sidon is in Lebanon. And I'll colour it in red here, because the important thing to say about the south of Lebanon is this is where Hezbollah congregate. Let's just write in Hezbollah here. Hezbollah, like Hamas, terrorist group, aimed guns, missiles at Israel. Lots of missile attacks from Hezbollah into Israel. So Israel do what is called the pager attack.
If you haven't heard about this, just pay attention for a second. Israel blew up 2,800 Hezbollah terrorists today. You can see some of the video by selling the Iranian-backed group pagers with explosives hidden inside. It all started when Israel killed Hezbollah's number 2 by allegedly hacking his cell phone and then sending a missile through his apartment window. So the group, Hezbollah, wanted a more secure, untraceable way to communicate with its foot soldiers and some of its leadership. So it got everybody pagers.
So the pagers explode. Hezbollah is temporarily crippled by that. Israel follows up by making it pretty clear they're going across the border. Iran then has to respond. Tehran is the capital. It's a long way away, Iran. And they send those missiles in. But it's not just Iran. So Israel have Iranian-backed Hezbollah there and Hamas there. Syria is their enemy. Iraq is their enemy for different reasons, and you've got the Houthis in Yemen, and they're all now pointing at Israel. Although we have to say, Carole, the Israeli military can probably manage a conflict with all of them.
I think they probably could. I think Israel's doing the West a favour currently. We have David Lammy today feebly calling for a ceasefire, and all that would do would allow Hezbollah and Hamas to regroup and to rearm, and we can't have these groups terrorising the world, and they're terrorising us too, and that's
There's no military solution to this.
Well, I didn't say there was, but you can't have a country attacked.
So we just attack, so it goes on and on and on. And
so who should stop then?
Your description was great, Jeremy, but it didn't start in October the 7th.
No, it didn't. I did say that.
Yes, you alluded to that.
Yeah. I mean,
it started
to say
80 years ago,
sure.
and what each side has done to the other is unspeakable over the years. listening to some of the coverage, particularly in the States, you'd think the whole thing started, the whole conflict between the Palestinians.
But Phil, what would you expect a country to do after the October the 7th massacre? Are you saying that if your people were shot and raped,
they are my
and
people.
Tortured,
I'm Jewish.
No,
I'm Jewish myself.
So if they were shot and raped and tortured, the world should just turn its back on that, and pretend it didn't happen.
1,200 were killed in an unspeakable way. They killed 40,000 in return. They've turned the whole of Gaza into rubble.
Let him just finish his sentence.
They've turned the whole of Gaza into rubble. They were offered.
And that is
hang on. They were offered peace.
Oh,
the hostages could have been they were
Hamas
offered
don't
peace.
want peace. You're being very naive.
Released. We could have had them back in Israel. And Netanyahu
Carole, you think there was no peace offer?
There was a peace offer. Hamas do not want peace. They're not interested in peace. They're interested in destroying Israel and destroying the West.
Probably would have signed up to
They hate the West
peace.
and everything we stand for, and they hate Israel. And
Carole,
they want them
just
all
help me
wiped out.
understand how this works, because if you leave anyone alive in Gaza, you have the next generation of Hamas. Because if you're a 3-year-old in Gaza, you'll never
Every
forgive.
orphan becomes a terrorist in inverted commas in 20 years' time.
Right, and so I don't know how Israel can do anything other than just manage this hatred against them.
I mean,
They
you
can't
say
defeat
that.
it.
You say that, but none of us have lost people in the way they have. And I think, it's all very well us pontificating in the West in the safety of peace. And when we haven't experienced what happened on October the 7th.
By the way, this is the important thing to say, is that these Iranian missiles
We have
coming
experienced
in
it. We had 7/7. We had 9/11.
Phil, look at Iran now. Look at Iran, Phil. Look at what Iran is. We're seeing these pictures of 200 missiles. What does Israel do about that? There's the question.
Yes. Israel is the most
Doesn't matter how many got through. They fired 200
It does matter.
missiles.
Israel is the most
it doesn't.
sophisticated military power in the world, armed to the teeth by America.
So that's all right then.
It's
God
not
they are.
all right. I don't want war any more than you do.
But what happens next, Phil?
What happens next is frightening, because we're worried about energy prices. We're worried about terrorism going round the world again, hitting our streets. Perhaps if we get involved, what are we doing getting involved?
Should we be involved, Carole?
No, I don't know what we should be doing quite yet. I don't know, and I don't understand. But what I do know is that Iran bankrolls and arms Hamas and Hezbollah. And they're going to keep on fighting. They're going to keep on killing Jews, and they're going to keep on killing people in the West until they're stopped.
When was Hezbollah was stopped? What's the definition of man as doing the same thing again and again and again? This is the 6th time they've invaded Lebanon, and each time they have to get out. In the 1980s, when they invaded Lebanon, Hezbollah was created in order to get them out. That's the roots of Hezbollah.
So they're a noble organisation.
They're not a noble organisation.
Really
I'm not saying that. I don't have any truck with them. I'm not pro-Hezbollah or Hamas or Iran. I am pro-peace, though.
OK, let's speak to the former chair of the Defence Select Committee and Lieutenant Colonel Tobias Ellwood about this. I'm guessing you're as worried as the rest of us, Tobias.
I am. I'm here actually in Warsaw at the Security Forum. We're supposed to be talking about Ukraine and what Russia is doing. That conflict is now 950 days old. But all eyes are on the Middle East and what's happening there. We watched that barrage of ballistic missiles, 200 missiles, fly across a couple of other countries. This is larger than the attack in April. Very dangerous indeed, because we've now crossed a Rubicon of one state actually attacking another state. 2 states at war that for the last couple of 2 or 3 decades have actually simply worked through proxy operators, avoiding this escalation. So we've now moved into a very, very dangerous period indeed, with Israel promising to respond. And I think the West, as much as we can do, needs to encourage Israel to think carefully about that response, because it could escalate even further. What sits behind Iran, of course, is Russia. And Iran also sits on the crossroads of so much of our oil and gas needs, the world's oil and gas, with a third of the world's oil going through the Straits of Hormuz. The Red Sea is another important corridor, maritime corridor as well. Knock-on consequences for the rest of the world, given where we are today.
Well, just thinking it through. So Iran, as far as we know, doesn't have a nuclear bomb and Israel does. Let's assume Israel doesn't go down that path, but they do overfly Tehran and they bomb part of Tehran. That's easily possible, given what's just happened. What then happens after that, Tobias?
Well, you're right to mention the nuclear aspect of this. a concern that Iran has had, and America, indeed others. What happens if Iran did actually develop that nuclear capability? So on its target list will absolutely be the nuclear procurement sites that Iran is using in order to inhibit Iran developing a bomb. But as I say, there's a wider context here of Iran wanting not to be seen to lose. There's also losing, I think, the relationships that have been formed very carefully with the rest of the Muslim community, with the Arab Accord signatories, with Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and so forth. That will all break, that will all hemorrhage if, I'm afraid, there is a major attack against Iran. And don't forget, Iraq is there as well, Syria too. There's an awful lot of countries that will somehow get involved, making this very, very complicated indeed.
Thank you very much indeed, Tobias Ellwood, for joining us as always, and I hope you have some good conversations in Warsaw about this whole situation. We'll talk more as well after the break. What should Britain do in response to these growing tension and violence in the Middle East? I'll show you the front pages. Everyone's onto this. It's one of those stories where overnight so much happens. So you wake up and you find that Iran directly has unleashed 200 missiles. Revenge from above. US threatens severe response. Iran attacks Israel. Then you've got The Guardian looking around the corner saying Israel vows to retaliate. Then The Independent sums it up, as we were saying earlier. Israel invades, Iran retaliates. The world looks on in horror. Hellfire. The Mail has the Iron Dome holds firm. It's remarkable that basically nothing got through because of Israel's missile defences. Telegraph and The Times, Middle East erupts. So there we are. As we've said, British forces were involved in supporting Israel. This is what the Prime Minister had to say last night.
Good evening. In the last few hours, the Iranian regime has launched over 200 ballistic missiles at civilian targets in Israel. It's too soon to assess the impact fully, but I utterly condemn this attempt by the Iranian regime to harm innocent Israelis, to escalate this incredibly dangerous situation and push the region ever closer to the brink. It cannot be tolerated. We stand with Israel and we recognise her right to self-defence.
So just thinking about our friend Tobias Ellwood's words, Carole, do you think his analysis is right?
Oh yeah, I thought it was a brilliant analysis, and you know we you pointed out the fact that Iran doesn't have a nuclear bomb, and he was saying quite rightly that we must not allow them to be able to develop that, because they would use this. They've just done that, and they've launched 200 missiles at
and it's all right for Israel to have one.
At civilian targets, and if they had landed, they would have killed many people. You can't.
It seems like the deterrence of nuclear weapons has been overrated. So Ukraine at war with Russia. Russia has a nuke they don't dare use. Israel similarly have been hit by 200 missiles here, but they're not going to respond with a nuclear weapon.
Well, the idea that we now know since Chernobyl, that you showed the map of that Middle East, how densely all the countries are together. The idea that the nuclear cloud is not going to come over and poison to death with new radiation anyone who unleashes a nuclear bomb in that area is ludicrous to even consider.
In the 70s, I remember as a child, there was a threat to every single Jewish person in the world from, you think about the Munich disaster, the Olympics. There was a cruise ship that was, I think it was called the Achille Lauro, and it was taken by terrorists, and they pitched an old
PLO,
Jewish man off the side. We haven't seen that kind of global terror from the PLO or Palestinian organisation. But I wonder whether we should fear that coming back, Carole.
Yeah, I think we probably should. But I think the Islamist terror that the world currently faces is in itself terrifying, and it has to be dealt with. And as long as Iran are paying for these groups to exist, we are all in danger.
But I don't know so with this pager thing, apparently a lot of the men whose pagers went off had their testicles blown off, right? It's a terrible, that's an unholy injury that they've suffered. How does that calm things down, genuinely?
Well, it doesn't. But, Phil,
how does that make you safer if you've done that?
It doesn't calm anything down. But, and Phil said before he's in favour of peace. You cannot talk to terrorists and expect them the end of your...
We spoke to the IRA. You can talk to terrorists.
Not when their
I'm
aim
sorry,
is the whole
you can. That's how it
of the
ends.
West. It's not how it ends, because they can't be taught.
Well,
was
we
going
spoke to
to
the
talk to the
IRA, we
Taliban,
got a
right?
deal, didn't we? And there's peace in Northern Ireland.
Well, maybe that's where this goes.
I think
don't
they're a
know.
different kind of-
After the Nova attack, the festival, I just think that they are so far apart.
Yeah.
I can't imagine them talking for decades.
No.
William in Dorset. Hello, William. Should we be involved?
Well, yeah, we should have been involved suing for peace. We don't want a war, but the problem is, it's not Israel that's the big problem here. It's America. America funds Israel, and with the American election coming up, they're not going to stop supplying them with arms, because then they'll lose votes in America. I mean, if you go back to 1948, when Israel was founded, the Israelis, well, they killed so many Palestinians to establish the state of Israel. They then went to America and got America to recognize Israel. And the president at the time went against his cabinet's advice. He recognized Israel.
We were coming off the back of the Second World War and the Holocaust. Yeah, okay. Okay, there was a world... There was
cabinet advice against it, because they said there would be forever war in the Middle East because of it. There'd be trouble, and they were right.
Yeah, thanks, William. Aziz in Southampton, what do you think?
Well, unfortunately, all the wars, whether it's been Ukraine, Middle East, or anywhere, the common denominator is the US, UK, and the European Union. All we churn out is the old line of Israel has a right to defend itself, and we stand with Israel. I mean, why do we stand with Israel all the time?
It's not the terrorists' fault, Aziz. It's not the terrorists' fault.
Well, who are the terrorists?
Hang on, let Carole ask him a question.
Aziz, I'm actually
Aziz?
you're blaming the UK and you're blaming the US, but it's not the terrorists' fault, is it not?
Well, if Israel's got the right to defend itself, do the Palestinians have a right to defend themselves? Can they have a resistance army?
I would say it's not the Palestinians that are in the main doing the fighting. I would say it's the terrorists who are hiding among the Palestinians and then endangering men, women and children.
Let's get real here. Unless there is a solution that involves the Palestinian people and gives them land and gives them justice, there is no peace. End of. That's the problem. The Palestinian people not having their own state, not having their own land, not having peace. Absolutely.
Really believe if there was a
time.
two-state solution, you really believe that Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthis would go away? Do you actually believe that?
Well, they were created because they didn't have their state. So, yes.
Israel will say they can never allow another state now which they don't have total control over, so they'd have to
Yeah, quite. Why should they have total control over another people?
Well, yeah, but they won't feel safe unless they do. That's the
Well, why
thing.
can't the
And they're right not to.
Palestinians
We
feel
just
safe?
saw last night they're right not to.
Aziz, thank you. David Lancaster, hello.
Hi, morning, Jeremy. Morning, everybody.
Yes, it's a morning. I think it's probably not a good morning today, is it really?
No, it's not a good morning, but I'm afraid that we're going to have to get involved one way or another. We have a vested interest in this. There's going to be more refugees. There's going to be more problems. And like Russia, Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas, they don't want peace. They want control.
Yeah.
They want to run the show.
Yeah.
And if we get to a situation, which we will get if we allow this to carry on, in years to come, I'm afraid, we had a conspiracy theory talk the other day, Jeremy. Your great-great-great-granddaughters are definitely going to be walking down the street wearing burqas or hijabs, because that's coming. If we don't stop it now, we've got to...
Great. Well, that's quite a long way. That's about 200 years away, but I don't think it's coming.
But the serious point that
he's forecast for about 40 years.
All right.
The serious point that Dave makes there is that Hezbollah and Hamas, they would want to destroy liberal values in whatever country they're in.
But they're not doing very well, are they, in terms of their progress? I mean, Gaza's been flattened, Lebanon's been invaded. They can't even break out of the south of Lebanon.
They told us they were going to destroy Hamas. They're still there after 11 and a half months. They can't even do that. It's still going on.
Can we just do the Trump thing seems to be, this is not, it's not on us, right? Just leave it. I mean, Trump will come in behind Israel for sure. Can we just do what Trump would do, which is to say it's a faraway place? And
I think for now we shouldn't perhaps get involved. I think we should let Israel do whatever it's going to do. It's going to fight. It is going to respond. And, you know, the thing is, you can't blame Israel for responding after sending 200 missiles into your country. You can't blame that. I think for now...
You can't blame Israel for the deaths of children in Gaza?
Well... Perhaps if Hamas weren't hiding among the children of Gaza, that the children wouldn't be getting killed. I think that's the problem. They know that. They tunnel under the kids and under schools and under hospitals.
More calls after the break. Now, more of your calls on the situation in the Middle East. How should Britain respond? How involved should we be? Martin in Nottinghamshire, what do you think?
Hi, good morning. Britain should keep out of this conflict. We shouldn't be sending arms to Israel. How many British arms has helped to flatten hospitals in Gaza? And also, Carole, do you think 40,000 civilian lives is a price to pay? Do you think it's because of tunnels under the ground, women and children should be slaughtered by the Israelis?
Well, it's a very silly question to ask me.
Martin,
of course I
let her
don't.
answer.
Of course I don't think it's okay. Of course I don't. But I think you can't attack a country and not expect it to attack back.
No, Israel has attacked Lebanon. That is another country.
Long time ago.
They've gone into Lebanon now. They've gone in yesterday. Israel's gone into Lebanon. They've been into Egypt before to establish their state, right? What about the illegal settlements being built inside Israel, forcing out the Palestinians and the Arabs out their homes?
Inside Israel, you mean in the occupied territories? Yeah, OK, Martin, thank you. Thank you. Alice in Manchester, hi.
Yes, good morning, Jeremy. We've spoken before. I phoned a couple of weeks ago and butted heads with that Narinder.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say, please give me a chance to say what I want to say.
Well, start. You've got to start quicker than that. Go for it.
Right. Britain has a responsibility. Britain and the allies have a responsibility because you, when I say you, because I'm Indian, obviously, by birth, as I mentioned, you won't remember.
I forgot.
Britain, 75 years ago, started this because they decided to give a homeland to the Jews, okay? Now, that's fine, but to plonk a whole load of European Jews in the middle of the Middle East, a totally different culture, was unacceptable. I'm totally with Carole on this. We need to sort this out. We need to stop these maniacs.
But Alice, you've missed out the Holocaust there. At the end of the Second World War, there was a global feeling that Jews needed a homeland, right? And you skipped over that.
Agree.
Yeah, but somebody else's land, some other people live there.
Yeah. So what do you do, Alice? What do you do to them?
I'm just about to say what the solution was, a pretty simple one. Britain owned the whole world, literally, that time. If they had given the Jews, the European Jews, I want to emphasise, a cluster of islands, can you imagine what would have been the case now, 75 years later? They would have been the most powerful nation because for some reason, Jewish people always succeed.
Which cluster of islands?
I don't know, but at that time, there would have been so many uninhabited islands in the whole world at that time, OK? I mean, I know that you're smiling, Jeremy.
I'm not smiling, I'm wincing at the fact that you actually think there's an island. Why are you
wincing?
Well, because you just think there's a spare island somewhere. You can plonk a load of people.
Well, but
it's
75
not like that.
years ago,
and by the way,
but
also for people who are of Jewish origin in the 40s, Jerusalem is an important place, to say the least.
And is it not important for the Christians?
Yeah, sure.
And the Muslims, sorry.
But you know, it's like people say, well, stick them in Wyoming or something. I mean, it's just not.
They nearly went to Madagascar. That was an option.
Madagascar.
I'm sorry, but you're totally missing the point. I am not on the side of Israel completely. The gentleman before who phoned up talked about the illegal settlements. That is totally wrong. I've got a foot in both camps, but this cannot go on. For heaven's sake.
Yeah, but I think it probably will, though.
It's not the solution. They will do it again.
Thank you. Well,
Alice, can I just
talk about moving the state of Israel to a different place?
Alice, I'm listening to you. What do you think should happen now?
We should continue. We should continue, or when I say we should help them. We should help the Israelis.
Why should we help Israel? Israel has the power of the It's the most powerful military country in the world. It's got this Iron Dome. Nothing gets through
Jones,
it.
please stop talking nonsense. They are surrounded by enemies. Okay,
Yeah. But why do you want to move? I know you say why do you want Israel to physically be moved around the world?
I did not say that. Please listen to what I'm saying. Israel cannot be moved. It's a country there now, and it exists, and it has to be accepted.
Okay.
But 75 years ago is what I'm saying. Sir Winston Churchill and his bloody mob could have given them a wonderful, peaceful life.
Yes. Okay. All right. Let's leave it there. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Pete in Sheffield. Hi.
Oh, hello there.
I'd love to go back 75 years. That's not going to help us now. What do you think?
I think it's about time all wars were abolished by international.
All wars are abolished.
I think all wars should be abolished by the United Nations. And I think this day and age is absolutely sick. Still fighting wars. You know, after the Second World War, you'd think the world would have come to its senses.
But sometimes, if there's an act, so you would stop Ukraine.
We will end up in a nuclear war.
You would stop Ukraine defending itself.
No, I wouldn't. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing wrong with countries having armies, you know, to defend themselves in that respect. But at the end of the day, it's time we took an important look at war altogether.
All right.
And the United Nations sat down and really thought about abolishing wars to make sure we don't have any more.
Pete,
What kind of world are we bringing our children?
Well, of course we don't. Everyone is like Edwin Starr. What is it good for? But
in an ideal world, we wouldn't have wars. No one wants a war, but it's actually impossible to abolish wars if countries attack each other.
Also, we've got 8 billion people on the planet, and there's, everyone's fighting for space. Pete, thank you. I really appreciate your call. Alice as well. God, we've ranged there.